Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for Week 4 Thursday Night Football. We got the Seahawks and the Cardinals playing this Thursday night to kick off Week 4, and I've got some early player props I like for this game. Taking a first look at the board on Wednesday afternoon, recording this video the day before. So we're going to give you guys two plays I'm liking, taking a first look at the board, and as always, we're going to break down these plays and we're going to share why I like them. Now, before we do get started, guys, make sure that you hit that like button down below. If you enjoy these Prizepicks videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to the channel and if you are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have a Prizepicks account, make sure that you go sign up. Use that promo code NOAH when you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code and play $5. You're going to get $50 worth of free lineups, again, just for signing up and using code NOAH. And also, do want to shout out Prizepicks because they once again have another free square this week for NFL. They've given out a free square every week so far of the NFL season. I don't know if they're going to continue to do this every week, but Jalen Hurts pass yards is set at 0.5 for this week, for Week 4. And this is a free pick available to everyone. So if you already have a Prizepicks account, you can use this free square. If you don't have a Prizepicks account, that's just another incentive to sign up. Again, free picks, promotions, discounts, stuff like this. You always want to be playing these discounts, even though sometimes the max amount you can play on these might only be $5 or $10. I know it's not a lot of money, but you can still make money off these discounts, and that's the goal. It doesn't matter how much you can bet. You're just trying to make money, and that's what we're trying to do here is make money. Use these free picks to make money, and hopefully you can build your bankroll up on Prizepicks off of these discounts, and also off of the free lineups that they give you when you sign up with code NOAH. So if you guys don't have a Prizepicks account, make sure again that you go sign up. Use that code NOAH when you do. And then I do also want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper because we are partnered with Sleeper as well. You guys can go sign up for Sleeper. Use promo code NOAH over there. Get your first deposit matched up to $100. So Sleeper will match whatever you put in up to $100. If you want to deposit $100, they'll give you an additional $100 to play with. So now you got a $200 bankroll you can work with over on Sleeper. Try and build up that bankroll. But if you guys don't know what Sleeper is, they're just a DFS pick'em app, very similar to Prizepicks. Download their app, sign up, use that code NOAH, get that deposit bonus, and then try and win some money over there on Sleeper. A lot of times the plays I give out in this video, these videos you can use on Sleeper as well. So even though this is a Prizepicks centered video, you can still check out the plays on Sleeper, play them over there. Sometimes the payouts might even be better on Sleeper because Sleeper uses a multiplier system. So like if you're getting a good multiplier, then sometimes the payouts can be better over there. But definitely check out Sleeper, guys. And again, use that code NOAH if you don't have an account on Sleeper. But before we talk through the props that I'm liking for this Thursday Night Football game, I do want to recap our plays from our last video, which was on Monday for Monday Night Football. We gave out two picks Monday night. Unfortunately, went 1-1. So one of the plays hit, but one of the plays missed. We did hit Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions, which is pretty much sweat-free. Gibbs had, I think, 4 or 5 receptions in like the first half. But we paired that with Derrick Henry over fantasy score, which was looking great because Henry had like a 30-yard touchdown run. I want to say in the first quarter, had like 9 or 10 fantasy points in the first quarter, and we had him over 14.5. But then after that touchdown run, like he really didn't do much at all, was getting stuffed. He had a fumble late in the game, which definitely hurt. It's kind of frustrating because I really thought Henry was going to get there, especially after that early touchdown run. But in the second half, didn't really do much. Didn't go over his fantasy score line, unfortunately. But we've still been doing great with our NFL plays lately. Hopefully, I've been helping you guys make some money. Let's see if we can get back on track here, get in the winner's circle for this Thursday Night Football game. So talking through the props that I like for Thursday night, we're going to look at a couple fantasy score lines. The first fantasy score line that I'm liking, that I think is a little bit too low, we're going to take Kyler Murray more than 17 fantasy score. Now, if you look at Kyler Murray so far this season, he's only gone over this line once this season. He went over Week 1 against the Saints, had 18.32 fantasy points. And then Week 2 against the Panthers only had 15 fantasy points in what was a pretty solid matchup. You definitely would have expected Kyler to do better in that game. Threw for 220 yards, 1 touchdown, had 7 carries for 32 yards. And then last week against the 49ers, had 14.06 fantasy points, threw for 159 yards and 1 touchdown, added on 6 carries for 37 yards. So far this season, Kyler has not been great from a fantasy perspective, but this is a quarterback who has historically been a really good fantasy quarterback because not only can he get you points as a passer, but he's also a very good runner. And dual threat quarterbacks are always going to be more valuable for fantasy. I mean, you think about some of the best fantasy quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Like, these are guys that can use their legs, can get you rushing yards, can get you rushing touchdowns. And Kyler's the same way. Now, is Kyler on the same level as those guys? Not quite, but he's still a very mobile quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback. He's someone that they will use a lot in the red zone near the goal line. They'll do design runs for Kyler, so he definitely has chance. He has a chance to get a rushing touchdown pretty much any game. So far this season, he is yet to score a rushing touchdown, but I'm sure he's going to have one soon. It could be this game that he gets one, but especially without James Conner now the rest of the season, I think we could see the Cardinals lean a little bit more on Kyler Murray's arm, a little bit more on Kyler Murray's legs as well the rest of the season. And I think this matchup against the Seahawks on paper looks like a pretty tough one, because if you look at the Seahawks so far this season against opposing quarterbacks, they've done a pretty good job limiting fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. But it's a small sample of only 3 games, and the 3 quarterbacks they've faced are Brock Purdy, Aaron Rodgers, and Spencer Rattler. So although the Seahawks defense has looked pretty good, they haven't faced like the best quarterbacks, and even I would say the good quarterback they did face, Brock Purdy, week 1. Purdy did have a pretty good game against Seattle. I mean, he threw for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns, also had 5 carries for 17 yards. Now, he did throw 2 picks, but interceptions for fantasy they're not going to kill you. I mean, you only lose 1 point for interceptions. We see guys can have good fantasy games even while throwing 2-3 interceptions. Purdy threw for 277 and 2, though, against Seattle in week 1. Aaron Rodgers wasn't great against Seattle, but I mean, at this point in his career, Aaron Rodgers, not the same quarterback he used to be. Definitely from a fantasy perspective, he's not the same quarterback he used to be. And then obviously Spencer Rattler, I mean, in terms of starting quarterbacks, I would say Spencer Rattler is probably one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So this Seahawks defense, although they look solid, they haven't faced the most elite quarterbacks to begin the year. I think this is definitely a spot where Kyler can have success at home as well in Arizona in a dome. That's a good environment to play in. Obviously playing in a dome versus playing like in a road stadium where you're outdoors and maybe there's weather concerns, that's always going to be impactful, especially for quarterbacks, since they have to grip the ball, they have to throw the ball. Dome environments are always going to be much, much better for quarterbacks. And Kyler gets to play at home in a dome in Arizona where he's typically performed well in his career. I think this matchup against Seattle on paper isn't the most toughest matchup for Kyler here, although it may look like it. Again, this Seattle team has not faced the most elite quarterbacks to begin the season. And we got a close spread in this game, decent total. I think the total's at like 44, 45. Not the highest total, but a decent total, close spread. So we should see a back and forth type game script. And again, without James Conner the rest of the season, I definitely could see the Cardinals here leaning more on Kyler Murray, leaning more on him as a passer, leaning more on him as a runner. You look at his pass attempts line for Thursday night. I think that line is set at like 31.5. Yeah, 31.5. Despite him only going over that line once this season. So clearly the sports books are expecting more pass attempts for Kyler. Obviously, if he passes the ball more, that's going to give him more opportunity to get fantasy points. So I do like that as our first prop for Thursday night. And then the other prop that I like is another fantasy score line. And we're going to take Torrey Horton for more than 5 fantasy score. Now, Torrey Horton is a 5th-round rookie out of Colorado State. You might not know a lot about him, but he's kind of been coming on the last few weeks for the Seahawks. He's their wide receiver 3 in terms of targets, in terms of snaps played. But at this point in his career, Cooper Kupp is not the same elite target earner that he's been throughout his career. I could definitely see Torrey Horton start to earn more targets as the season goes on. Just kind of as a rookie, you start to get more playing time, you start to get more comfortable. He's already starting to look better the last few weeks. Obviously in week 1 against the 49ers, he didn't have a single target, wasn't really involved much at all. But then the last 2 weeks, we really started to see Torrey Horton get more involved. He's had 4 targets now in back-to-back games. Last week, I think he scored 2 touchdowns. One of them was a receiving touchdown, and then he also had a punt return, I believe, or a kick return for a touchdown. And then against Pittsburgh in that game, 2 catches, 32 yards, got into the end zone that week. Obviously, we can't expect Torrey Horton to score a touchdown every single week, but with his fantasy score line being at 5, he doesn't have to score a touchdown to go over this line. He could have 2 or 3 catches for 25 yards, and that's enough, because on Prizepicks, it's full PPR, so you get a point per reception. So if Horton gets 3 catches for 21 yards, that's 5.1 fantasy points, and that would be enough for him to go over this line. And if you look at where his projections are set at for Thursday night, I mean, his receptions prop is set at 2, so he's projected for 2 catches. That's obviously, that's 2 fantasy points. His receiving yards was at 22.5 before I started recording this video. It's already up to 24.5, so his receiving yards line is starting to go up. But if he has 2 catches for 25 yards, that's 4.5 fantasy points. That almost puts him over this fantasy score line. And then obviously you have to factor in touchdown potential. Horton is not likely to score a touchdown, but he has scored a touchdown now in back-to-back games. If he finds the end zone, he's almost, he's guaranteed to go over this fantasy score line, but we don't need a touchdown from him to go over 5 fantasy score. Again, this is a player that had a lot of promise. I mean, he was pretty good at Colorado State, had some really good numbers at Colorado State. Outside of really Jackson Smith and Jigba and kind of a washed-up Cooper Kupp, I mean, he doesn't have a ton of target competition. The tight ends for Seattle don't really get much involvement at all in the passing game. A.J. Barner has barely gotten any targets this year. The running backs, Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet definitely will get some usage in the passing game, but so far this season, he's really yet to get involved in the passing game. Kenneth Walker, so far this season, only has 5 targets. Like, Seattle's not really throwing to their running backs much at all. A lot of the targets have been going to Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think JSN so far this season has like a 40% target share, which is absurd. Maybe JSN continues to just dominate the targets every single game, but I think we're going to start to see Torrey Horton get more involved. I like betting on rookies early on in the season when there's, less data, less information known about them. A lot of times you'll see these rookies, start off the season kind of slow and then they kind of progress as the season goes on. I definitely think that's what we could see from Torrey Horton here, and I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see Torrey Horton get more snaps, get more involved in the offense. He's already been playing about 50% of the snaps each week. That number could definitely rise as the season progresses. And if you look at the Seahawks offense so far this season, the Seahawks have not really been throwing the ball a lot this year, but that's just kind of been due to game script. If you look at so far in their games this season, so last week against the Saints, I mean, they blew out the Saints. They put up 44 points, but a lot of their offensive production last week came on the ground. Sam Darnold last week only had 18 pass attempts, so he was really not throwing the ball much at all in that game against the Saints. And if you look at Sam Darnold's pass attempts for this week, if I can find the line, his pass attempts line is set at 30, despite only going over that line once this season. The one time he did go over that pass attempts line was on the road against Pittsburgh. He had 33 pass attempts. And then week 1 against the 49ers, he only had 23 pass attempts, but that was kind of a low-scoring game. I want to say the 49ers dominated time of possession in that game as well, which is one of the reasons why Darnold had such few pass attempts. And then last week, it was just a massive blowout. They didn't really have to throw the ball much at all. A lot of the starters didn't even play the whole game. They pulled the starters early because the game was so out of hand. This is expected to be a spot where we see Seattle, his pass offense kind of spike back up a little bit. The sportsbooks obviously are expecting that, given Sam Darnold a 30 pass attempts line. If Sam Darnold has 30 pass attempts, I think there's a very good chance you see Torrey Horton get at least like 3 or 4 targets. His targets prop is set at 3.5 for Thursday night. If he gets 3 or 4 targets, there's a good chance he can get 5 fantasy points off those targets. Because, like I said, with Prizepicks being full PPR, you only need a couple catches to go over 5 fantasy score, which I think Horton can definitely do here. I like the matchup as well against Arizona. Arizona's defense has definitely been more beatable through the air this season than they have been against the run. Arizona's actually been pretty solid against the run so far, but against the pass, that's where they've struggled the most. I definitely could see this being a game where Seattle's pass offense has more success in this spot. So these are going to be the 2 props, guys, that we roll with for Thursday Night Football, Week 4, Seahawks and Cardinals. Taking Kyler Murray for more than 17 fantasy score and taking Torrey Horton for more than 5 fantasy score. So got 2 plays here for Thursday night. Let's try and go 2-0 on these 2 plays. As always, guys, appreciate you watching these Prizepicks videos and appreciate your support. Make sure to hit that like button down below before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe button as well. And go sign up for Prizepicks, guys. Use that code NOAH when you do sign up. So that way when you play $5, you'll get $50 worth of free lineups just for signing up and using code NOAH. But good luck. Let's win some money tonight, and I'll see you guys in the next video.